Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, closing out September with a great episode. Can't wait to share it with you. Couple things, please do me a favor and listen to the commercials that are here at Word Balloon on the podcast, the commercials that air before the show starts, the national ads you hear. I get paid by them for the listenership, and if you fast forward with them, I don't get credit. So please listen to those. It's only about 2 minutes long, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Questions or comments about the show, or if you are an aspiring creator, please email me. Please don't message me on Facebook. Please don't message me on Twitter about your book. Best way to directly approach me is via email, john@wordballoon.com. As you know, I've got a Word Balloon channel at YouTube under Word Balloon. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. I'm just over 800. Help me out there. And subscribe. It's free, and I have video content there. I promise to do a lot more. Okay, one more spot, and then on to the show. Thanks a lot. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Great conversation today. Larry Young is back. Larry is the publisher of AIT, Planet Lair, for books like his own Astronauts in Trouble. And also, he was the guy that made me discover Matt Fraction through his imprint. A great book that he did, Last of the Independents. And Larry's had some amazing books like Black Diamonds and Proof of Concept. Had a bunch of pitches for various stories that he never got around to. And he's a creative guy. He's also, as you know from Astronauts in Trouble, a massive Apollo fan, as I am. He wrote some great alternate history stories that had astronauts, as they say, in trouble. And it made me think that after seeing Ad Astra, the new Brad Pitt movie, Larry'd be a perfect person to talk about it because I was blown away by it. I'll tell you, I mean, this is a spoiler episode in terms of the detail we're going to go into regarding Ad Astra. But we talk about other things too. I mean, God, a lot of nerd news broke this week involving Kevin Feige and Star Wars and Sony, Spider-Man, and the Marvel Universe. It sounds like everyone's back on the same page. We'll get at least 2 more Tom Holland Marvel-related movies, so that sounds great. Larry and I reflect on that news, and then we get into our Ad Astra talk. So if you are looking for, obviously seeing Ad Astra before you hear this, I wanted to give you enough talk, and there's about a half hour or so before we really get into Ad Astra. We'll give you plenty of warnings. But if you've seen it, I'm sure you want to discuss it too. And I'm interested in what the audience thinks. It sounds like from an audience reception standpoint and critical standpoint, it's 50-50, which kind of surprised me. It's a thinking man's sci-fi movie in the vein of Interstellar and Gravity and The Martian. But I thought it was terrific, and I thought there was plenty of action, but also some really deep thoughts. Can't help but notice that it's a basic bookend to 2001 in a lot of ways. Can't help but notice the allusions to the Joseph Conrad story Heart of Darkness that of course became the film Apocalypse Now. There's a lot of that in there as well. I thought it was well executed. I thought Brad Pitt did an incredible job. This is clearly his year between this movie and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I've even watched some elaborate Q&As that he and the filmmaker did with the Washington Post in particular. You might be able to find that on YouTube. It's a nice hour-long conversation and a good review of the story. But man, I'll tell you, just the effects were terrific. I thought the action was excellent, and the subtext of the film that I thought was quite clear. I've even seen some YouTube Ad Astra end of the movie explained videos, and I'm like, really? Do you need an explanation? I thought it was pretty clear. I don't know. I am interested in what everybody thinks, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'm a massive Apollo fan. I was 4 when we landed on the moon. My parents were wise enough to have National Geographic and point me at the TV and show me posters and maps and point to the moon and point to the TV, and you see those guys in the helmets? Well, they're up there. And my 4-year-old brain could handle it and was blown away by the notion. Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons why I love Star Trek so much, because Star Trek being set, 300 years in the future, seemed plausible to me. I mean, now it looks kind of campy, but if you were a NASA kid, it's like, well, yeah, I could see us doing interplanetary travel and us reaching the point where, you don't need your spacesuits when you're inside the spaceship, and that we'd be visiting other planets. We were on the moon. And, I mean, not just one time, but, I mean, before the year was out, we were on the moon again on Apollo 12. And the subsequent Apollo missions through 17. All I can say is that space exploration was very important. I had no idea until I watched the Washington Post video that we're 5 years away from returning to the moon. They're talking about going back and starting to figure out plans for an infrastructure on the moon to build eventually the spaceship that will allow manned missions to Mars. And it's great to hear that the space program is very serious about starting up again. I don't know how much commercial investment will be involved alongside of NASA. But again, I think you get a good extrapolation of where the near future is going as far as the moon and Mars in Ad Astra. I found all that incredibly plausible and wanted to discuss it with somebody. So Larry was the guy that seemed to be very eager to be tapped, and we're like two little boys excited about what we saw. Again, I mean, this reminds me of my school days as a grade school kid, just as blown away by the subsequent Apollo missions through Apollo Soyuz. I mean, you'll forgive me, but the shuttle didn't excite me as much as the Apollo missions did. The space station has intrigued me again because it's this, ongoing thing, and astronauts live there. I always go to the NASA channel online and check out various, check-ins with the astronauts, whether they're doing Q&As with kids or any sort of presentation that they're doing. Hell, even that shot that we always get as the space station orbits the Earth, and you see their perspective of the Earth. It's incredible. So yeah, today a discussion about Ad Astra and all the nerd news that we've been getting this week with Larry Young on today's Word Balloon. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. We're at the end of the month, League. Thank you greatly for your support. You might hear a little quaver in my voice because I'm still recovering from that flu bug that hit me right after Rose City. And that's kind of been, put the kibosh on fresh episodes. I appreciate everyone enjoying the reruns that I did. I did want to pay tribute to Bill Shelley. I did want to represent that Jeff Johns interview, among the other things that I've released in the last couple of weeks, along with the new stuff. So thank you very much, League, for your great support via Patreon. If you want to subscribe to Word Balloon, it's free. It'll always be free. And we've got new stuff coming up in the days ahead. But if you want to help the cause out and subscribe and sponsor Word Balloon, is it worth the price of a comic book to you? Is it worth $1 a month to you? If you can swing it, I would really appreciate it. And thank you very much for your attention and support. League of Word Balloon listeners via Patreon. Go to patreon.com/wordballoon or click on the Patreon ad at wordballoon.com, and that will take you to my Patreon page. But thank you greatly, League of Word Balloon listeners.
Hollywood will fuck you when no one else will. Johnson Burger smoking.
Word Balloon also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. It was great catching up with my buddies Steve and Mark from Aftershock at Rose City. Also, I've been getting correspondence from various Aftershock creators that they've got new books coming, and you'll be hearing more from those people alongside the greats that have already made their name at Aftershock, like Donny Cates with Baby Teeth and Garth Ennis with his wonderful books like, A Walk Through Hell and Jimmy's Bastards and the like, and art books like The Art of Jim Starling, the original Art of Jim Starling, republished through Aftershock. The new Matthew Klickstein You Are Obsolete series just got started a couple weeks ago. And there's more. Cullen Bunn's Knights Temporal and Dark Ark, and you got Tim Seeley with Dark Red, great Midwestern vampire story, among others. So stick around, because in the days and weeks ahead we'll have Aftershock creators on to talk about their books. But you don't have to wait. You can go to their website and find out all about the great lineup that Aftershock gives you every month. Go to their website, aftershockcomics.com. You'll also find the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop. All right, without further ado, let's get into this conversation with Larry Young, where we talk about the nerd news of the week, Spider-Man, Star Wars, Kevin Feige going to Star Wars. Yes, please. Sony and Marvel cooling off, realizing the value they have with each other. Tom Holland doing more Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, an individual movie, and also likely appearing in another Marvel group movie of some sort. I'm for it. I think the questions that and the plot points that were dangling at the end of Far From Home deserve to be resolved. I find it interesting timing, as Larry points out, that the Blu-rays for Spider-Man Far From Home come out on Tuesday. I'm glad they solved it, because I honestly think it would have given them a hit in the pocketbook if they hadn't resolved things and left things as they were. And I don't think the aftermarket sales for Far From Home would have been as strong, knowing that we may not resolve these plot points that are dangling from the end of Far From Home. So I can't help but be a bit cynical and smile and say, yes, Sony, good idea, get your shit together. Because Marvel gave you some really interesting plot points that, like I said, you can't just leave hanging. So who knows what would have happened. Thankfully, we don't have to guess. They'll be able to move forward with whatever other plans Kevin Feige, Marvel, and company, along with Sony, have for Spider-Man's immediate future. But let's get into this conversation then with Larry Young talking about all that, plus Ad Astra, a spoiler review, now on Word Balloon. So that's good, and I'm starting to record. There we go. Is it up and running? It is. All right, here we go. Larry Young, welcome back to Word Balloon. Man, I figured we weren't going to talk until either your S.H.I.E.L.D. book was ready or, maybe we're well into the Picard series and kind of give an assessment of how things are going on. But a few things have broke. Some nerd news this week, and we both are going to talk a little bit later about Ad Astra. So first warning, we are going to have spoilers. I'm very excited to talk about this movie, and knowing your background owning a real NASA suit, and also your authorship of Astronauts in Trouble and everything, I knew I was talking to one of the right guys about this movie. But regardless, welcome back.
Well, thanks, John. It's a joy to talk to you. Like I said, I love Word Balloons. I love what you're doing. I think you're a national treasure, honestly.
I can think of some
you're
people.
Doing God's work over there, man.
I can think of some people on both sides of the aisle that would be happy to disagree with you, but that's all right. As I told you, I'm coming off a cold and a flu, and I'm far behind with a new conversation. But I guess good timing. I mean, we planned on talking today just about Ad Astra, and in the meantime, a couple big nerd news headlines dropped. The big one, was it this morning? The first I heard of it was this morning, that Sony and Marvel have kissed and made up, and at the very least, we're going to get one more Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I dropped my kid off at school like an hour ago, and I'm not really 100% up to date on stuff, but I read that one really quick because my wife Mimi and my kid Walker and I did one of those online, like, we'll rank your Marvel movie things. And I said Winter Soldier was the best Marvel movie, and Mimi said Guardians of the Galaxy, and my kid said Spider-Man Homecoming. And then the cool thing is our number twos were all Ant-Man. So that's really cool to me personally, that like Ant-Man was covering everybody. Because of course I'm going to love the 1970s Robert Redford S.H.I.E.L.D. heavy, movie. And my wife's going to love, Star-Lord and his funny antics. But my kid, of course, plugs into Spider-Man. So he's going to go nuts when I pick him up from school today, because they really got the kids with Spider-Man. And the adults are like, wow, you nailed Spider-Man. But the kids are like, I could be Spider-Man too.
Absolutely.
Especially because of that Into the Spider-Verse thing. Oh my God.
Yeah, now that was great, and that was purely a Sony movie. And I do love the Spider-Verse cartoon, and I'm thrilled for everyone involved, including Bendis, who's an executive producer on it. He was thrilled. But I think with the specific Marvel Spider-Man movies, I think they really nailed the high school stuff more so in ways that the Tobey Maguire movies didn't. I mean, they did fine, but you get a great sense of, Flash and Ned and, everybody that's in, and Mary Jane and, MJ. I got to be honest, I still haven't seen Far From Home. I've been too busy this summer, and I I wasn't crazy about MJ in Homecoming, just because they just made her so negative. And that's really my only knock on it. And I guess as a contrast to Liz, I love that they included Liz, and that's a good deep dive. But yeah, I was just like, all right, I don't know. Again, it's shame on me for the expectation of what we got in the comics. But as every nerd knows, when the bombshell is like into you, it's like, oh my God, that's a dream come true. Like, she likes Peter Parker. And just, that face, just the initial face of target, you hit the jackpot. It's like, yeah, man, this is great. Way to go, Peter. I mean, that's terrific. We all feel like we win when he does. And she just seemed like such a pill in Homecoming. So again, I haven't seen Far From Home yet, but that's my only little quibble about the high school experience that they're showing in the Tom Holland movies.
Well, Disney and Sony are just obviously geniuses, because for folks like you who haven't seen it, they put their news out today, and the Far From Home Blu-ray comes out on Tuesday.
Go ahead.
I think digital is still available now, but the Blu-ray comes out, which is and DVD, which are how most folks are going to watch it. I think, if they haven't stolen it already, it's pirate.com or whatever. But because my wife didn't have a chance to see it either, my son and I went 3 times, and she kept going, "Oh, I have something to do," and after a while, we're like, "Just wait for the Blu-ray." But now we get to say, "Oh, there's another one. He's going to be in a couple more Marvel movies." They sort of said in their announcement he's going to be in the Venomverse or whatever they end up calling the Spider-Man Sony stuff. Man, I hate to jump around. It's like I love talking. There's so much stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't see Venom when it came out, but I just recently watched it. It was at lunchtime, and I'm like, I'll put this on, whatever. And I watched the whole movie. I was totally captivated, and I couldn't understand why folks didn't like it until I realized I don't have any investment in the Venom character as a Spider-Man villain. So I'm just a regular dope at this point.
But that's
watching Venom, and man, I loved it. I thought it was great, and so I'm really looking forward to what Sony does, being able to add Tom Holland into that. That's just going to be great.
Well, you see, and there you go. And I'll be honest, I in the 90s, when they introduced Venom in the comics, it was one thing for him to be a Spider-Man villain, but then, as happened with so many characters, and it's happened in other decades as well, that they take a villain and turn him into an anti-hero. I'm like, I'm sorry, no, that doesn't work for me. This is a Spider-Man villain. And then to go on and create Carnage, I'm like, and on the first time I saw him, right. I'm like, why is Venom brown? Oh, no, that's Carnage.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And yeah, no, that's a different symbiote that latched onto a crazy person. Okay. I'm like, that's too much. I'm like, you guys are trying too hard. And I even had Dave Michelini on a panel, and I'm just like, all right, help me out. Venom as an anti-hero. And he's like, don't come to me because I don't buy that either, and I'm the one who created the goddamn character. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, fine. And it was really Donny Cates. I did a sit-down with Donny Cates earlier this year. And, okay. I mean, again, I'm not a fan of the character, but I can appreciate people who are excited by it. I liked what Rick Remender did with Venom in giving the symbiote to Flash. And it's like, okay, fine, now that's interesting. And Flash, at the end of the day, despite his film characterization, Flash is an earnest guy, and he's trying to do the right thing. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of intriguing, or whatever. And I'm totally cool with, Eddie is Venom, and he should be. That's okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. But I do welcome the idea that Holland will be both part of whatever Sony wants to do with the character, and given a chance to finish this Marvel thing. And as you point out, the Blu-ray coming out Tuesday, you got to figure that when they made that initial announcement that, nope, that's it, he's part of Sony now, he's not going to be part of Marvel anymore. And, I mean, a lot of us, even though if we haven't seen the movie, we know that it ends in a cliffhanger. And it's like, well, what happens with that dangling storyline, and how does that impact digital sales and DVD sales? I bet they were worried about that, frankly. Because
that's a good point. Yeah.
That response, the fan response was not at all positive. And I get angry at toxic fandom as well sometimes. But I can't blame them of like, oh, wait a minute, you're going to really cut this thing off in mid-story? And especially given, again, I've heard all the spoilers. I heard what happens. It's like, God, you really, they really set up some intriguing plot points to follow up on. And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you not going to follow up on these things? It's kind of stupid. So I think they wised up to find a way of continuing business. And I mean, again, Spider-Verse makes almost $1 billion. The Marvel Cinematic Universe movies make $1 billion. It's like, what are you doing? It's like,
well, that's the thing, right? I mean, I'm as cynical as the next 56-year-old man, and it was really hard not to think like, guys, there's this giant bucket of money on the side of the road and all kinds of global audience goodwill, and you're just gonna like mess that up because there's some kind of internecine Sony fight or some kind of ego thing with Disney. I'm like, you guys are out of your mind. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to entertain people. Just give us more of that, and you get all the money. So I knew they would figure it out. I just didn't think it would be this quickly.
I'm glad. I mean, honestly. And then, of course, the other big news this week, Kevin Feige getting involved in the Star Wars universe. That's excellent. Because, honestly, after Endgame, and again, I have no idea what enticements, and maybe this was one of them, to stick around and still be, kind of in charge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But after, 11 years and 20 movies or whatever, what more does Kevin Feige have to prove? It's like I'd go off on the victory lap and climb other mountains, including a potential Star Wars mountain. So I'm thrilled that, the powers that be are like, well, this guy seems to know what he's doing and is an executive that's also a fan. And it seems to me that is a change of mind in terms of executives understanding that maybe it's a good idea to have someone that really is a fan of this shit to be in charge. I know he's would only be either I'm assuming a producer on a Star Wars movie, but it's like, why not? I mean, this guy seems to know the secret sauce of success. And, obviously, from a monetary standpoint, the Star Wars movies have been successful. But I think this is great to get somebody of Feige's pedigree and track record on board to create a new Star Wars thing.
Oh, I could not agree with you more. Like, that guy, what's that, like you said, what's that guy going to approve? Oh, no, he's just going to, I fixed Marvel, I fixed all that crazy bankruptcy thing that happened.
Yeah.
We have this great vision, a couple missteps, but as a rule, that's all A-plus work. I'm going to go do the same thing for Star Wars now. When I read that news, I was like, wow, I have the biggest ego in the world, and I'm like, I could fix Star Wars. Oh, wait, Kevin Feige's going to do it? No, please. That's great. I'll just buy a ticket. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
the nation turns its lonely eyes to you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. Well, and again, there's this chorus from the left that, another white man is going to come in and do a Star Wars movie. And it's like, shut up. I'm sorry, and I'm a liberal when I'm saying this. The guy has made movies that have grossed either $800 million to $1 billion. He knows what he's doing. Shut up. He's also greenlit movies that have, going against Ike Perlmutter's wishes and saying, well, superhero movies are for boys, they're not for girls. And, he's been trying to make a Black Widow movie since day one, and also, giving the prominent roles of, Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, and, of course, Zoe Saldana as Gamora. And, it's like the guy's done nothing but create positive, and even the news now that we're going to get a Jane Foster Thor movie. It's like, no, this guy's on your side. This guy knows how to make great movies. Absolutely, let's find a Patty Jenkins or an equivalent or an Anna Dubé to make a Marvel movie, or even a Star Wars movie. But in the meantime, it's like, this guy knows what he's doing. Shut up. When I saw that reaction, it's like, God damn, man. It's how about people that have a track record and know how to do the job and make stuff that we like. So it got me really, really angry. And again, unfortunately, it's a vocal minority, and that's one of the sad things about social media. You know, you can have a handful of idiots, and it sounds like, I am Spartacus kind of crowd, kind of, fist shaking out there. And the reality is, no, you're a pretty small minority. Shut up.
That's a perfect metaphor. But I agree with you 100%. I'm like with you and with Price. He's a big leader of the fans. I love fans. I mean, I'm a fanboy. I'm the biggest fanboy there is. But the thing I don't like is when people just spout. You need to be informed. Then I got into it with a kid the other day he's talking about the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie.
Yeah.
And how, was it that? I don't know. It was it was the Pattinson Batman movie. And how who did they want to play Penguin? Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
And he was talking about grosses and receipts and contracts, and I'm like, dude, you're a secondary school English teacher in Minnesota. I don't mean to belittle that. I love teachers, God bless you, but you're just reading the same stuff all of us are reading.
Yep.
You're not like the voice of a generation. I mean, come on. But nobody wants to hear that.
No, I hear
It's like explaining a joke. I have to do that every once in a while. It's like explaining a joke is the worst thing ever for a writer, because you're like, well, you didn't get the joke, so you're going to feel dumb. But I didn't tell that joke, so you knew it was a joke, and you got mad. So now I feel dumb. So basically, both of us really should move on, but that does not happen on social media. Everybody wants to argue about everything.
Yes, and wants to be offended. Is looking to be offended.
Nah.
No, I agree with you, man. God, another complaint about the Joker movie coming up. Do we want to know? Do we? I don't want to sympathize for the Joker. Oh, you've seen the movie then? I mean, how do you know that you're going to be sympathizing with the Joker? How do you know it's not a total Travis Bickle or and now I'm shame on me. Travis Bickle, of course, the Scorsese movie. Help me out.
Right, Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver, of course. Yeah,
right,
man.
Right.
I mean, there's been a ton of movies about psychotics that you don't sympathize with them, and it's just an exploration of that character.
But that's the thing 70s audiences got that whatever we're calling this generation, the 2019 audiences don't get, because there's no nuance.
Right.
Hey, do you know E.J. Fettis, who does Spunky Bean? He's a pretty good observer of the scene, and he had this great line about the Joker movies, because he's a giant Batman fan. And he said, I'm the kind of guy who thinks you can't tell a Joker movie without Batman, because every Joker story starts with Batman. And that really rang my chimes. I was like, oh, EJ, what a great thing. It's like doing an entire movie about a Batman villain without Batman kind of takes the balls out of the concept.
Well, that's kind of what kept me from watching Venom, frankly, Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great. That's a great point. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor. He was awesome in Gladiator, but he's nuts. And so getting a guy who's actually nuts play a nutty character is kind of a brilliant thing. Sure.
And Todd Phillips, I love his work so much that, we have Starsky and Hutch on Blu-ray. That guy knows what he's doing. I'm sure the film's going to be great, but so much hand-wringing because no nuance. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I'm okay with a Joker movie without Batman just because I loved Gotham Central when it was coming out. The Brubaker, Greg Rucka series with Mike Clark.
Yeah.
And
good old Brube.
Yeah, well, it's again, especially a character like the Joker who's not supernatural or superpowered in any way. How does the police deal with this kind of psychotic? And sometimes there is no hero to save them. They got to do the job themselves. And I think that's okay. And I think it will be interesting. I also think, based on the more extended trailers that I've seen of Joker, I find the De Niro character interesting because I go back to King of Comedy, as I'm sure you thought as well, and now he's the Jerry Lewis character. It seems, it looks like he's a Tonight Show sort of host that doesn't know what's coming in this Joker character and everything. And it's like, I find that interesting, and that's also obviously going to dovetail into our Ad Astra conversation. But that it's almost an opposite mirror image of King of Comedy, this Joker movie. So that intrigues me.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, the casting is that's key, right? I mean, it does a lot of heavy lifting for you in the narrative. If you just like, oh, here's De Niro, you get like a third of the audience going, okay, I know what's happening here. Like Robert Redford in Winter Soldier.
Yep.
It's like, oh, yeah, it's, 3 Days of the Condor with Captain America. Thank you.
Yep.
So that's brilliant. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to reading all the post movie release hand-wringing that's going to happen because it's bad enough pre-release. Oh, my God.
I hear you, man. Well, and it's funny. I remember in Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, there's a great scene where it's all looking at some psychotic that's, I believe, was in a movie theater and opens fire. And they cut to the news, and it's like Batman-related murders happen in movie theater details later. And and you get this guy's inner monologue, and it has nothing to do with Batman. I am a little worried just because of the society we're currently living in. But by the same token, it's like, look, man, there's just sick fucking people out there. And like you said, too, we grew up on these 70s movies, and none of us, most of us came out of it unscathed and could differentiate art and hard hitting art with the real world. And I just, I don't know. Like you said, nuance is out the window. I shrug. What else can you do? I'm glad that Warner Brothers is sticking to their guns and still releasing this movie and aren't capitulating to this fear and intimidation from that standpoint.
From the 70s standpoint, I mean, think about like French Connection and Dog Day Afternoon and Taking of Pelham 123.
Yep.
Like, people just were entertained by seeing, life's messed up. But they didn't go out and then start killing people. They just went, oh, that's a reflection of what's going on in my life now. And hopefully, President Ford will help us through this. You know what I
Mayor
mean?
Koch.
Like, nobody's got a...
Or whoever was in the
got a... I don't know.
I hear you, man. No, I hear you. I love Taking of Pelham 123. The original is seriously one of my absolute favorite movies. And I always, for people who've never seen it, I'm like, it's Barney Miller with swearing, basically, and a little more violence. And it is, because they're
Barney Miller was swearing.
Matthau and Jerry Stiller, they're just like, all right, we got to deal with this idiot. All right, fine. They're just weary.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I miss about in modern films is that there's no, like, a guy like Walter Matthau could not headline a movie anymore because he looks like somebody's sick dog.
Yeah,
and he was a leading man. That's just I kind of miss that. I mean, everybody, even somebody like Chris Pratt, who's not like conventionally Hollywood handsome, can I mean, I love his work, but he still looks a little pretty.
Oh, please. And he totally, he buffed up from Parks and Rec to,
that's what I'm saying.
To do the leading man stuff that he's been doing and stuff like that. No, I agree with you, man. Yeah, I can't even think of a modern day Matthau equivalent. Pardon me. Still getting over the cold, obviously. But
yeah, you're okay.
But no, I agree with you, man. No, those Matthau movies, especially in the 70s, and like that and Laughing Policeman. That's the thing. Like, Charlie Varick and everything. I mean, those are tremendous, straight up, cop movies or dramas that, you have a comedic leading man or whatever, and he might have a couple lines here and there, but it's serious stuff he's dealing with, and he was just so capable. I love Matthau. I'm a huge Matthau fan.
Well, you've just ruined my Friday afternoon because now I'm going to spend, after this conversation, I'm going to spend my entire day thinking about who would be a modern Walter Matthau.
I don't know, man. Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
I don't think there is because there's no nuance anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's just square-jawed heroes and crazy villains.
Yeah. Well, Let's.
You got my old brain me thinking.
Well, by all means, and if you come up with an answer before the end of the conversation, I'll be interested to hear what you think. But let's move on to Ad Astra. Now, final warning, everybody, because I intend to spoil. I'm letting Larry know he can spoil as much as he wants. But yeah, we're about to talk about Ad Astra, and I'll say right off the bat, I thought it was excellent. I was blown away by the effects. I liked the subtext of the film, and the performances were amazing.
I'm 100% with you. I love that movie. I think people will go, it's boring, like need to just slam their heads in a door. Because if your life is so awesome that movie was boring, I don't know, you don't have anything to add to the world. I loved, where can I start? Let's start in the beginning, right?
Sure.
My big, I love space movies, you know that.
Sure, me too.
I love
movies.
Yeah. And that's where Astronauts in Trouble came from. I realized that all of my favorite movies were astronauts. We've had that conversation 100 times. So now though, I'm dialed down where I liked Brian De Palma's Mission to Mars, but it starts with a 20-minute barbecue scene. And I didn't like Interstellar at all, even though I loved Nolan. I loved Inception. That thing was great. But this movie's called Interstellar, and it starts with nobody can eat corn now, we have to eat okra. Are you kidding? Where are the spacesuits, right? And so that's what I loved about this movie, because it starts right off. One of my little pet peeves about science fiction movies is they have a little scroll that's like Logan's Run. It's like, it's 2319, and there are domes over everywhere, and here we're setting up the whole thing. Where if you just start the movie, you get it. Oh, look, there's domes, and then there's people. You don't need all that stuff. And so this one just, hey, it's the near future, and let me explain what Ad Astra means, because nobody knows Latin. And I was like, good, that's great. Start that way. And there's Brad Pitt in a spacesuit, but then they cut to the psych eval. And I'm like, oh, I instantly get what they're doing, which I think a lot of audience people miss, is that this movie is your own psych eval. It's a Rorschach test for the audience. Like, if you get what's going on, this movie's amazing.
Yep.
If you don't get what's going on, you're like, I don't get it. He's talking about, he's got daddy issues. I'm like, oh, you guys, if you don't have the astronaut related to Tommy Lee Jones, go get him. There's no, who cares? It's just another astronaut going to get some guy who turned into Captain Ahab in space.
Sure.
Or
Colonel Kurtz. But yeah, go on.
Exactly. There's a lot of Apocalypse Now and Heart of Darkness in there.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I just love how it avoided the 20-minute barbecue, which is like a little. I help some kids. I know they're doing narrative and stuff, and that's my little shorthand for like, don't be Legend of the Lone Ranger, where everybody went to a Lone Ranger movie and you didn't see him until the movie was 30 minutes until it was done. Right? It's like,
are you saying the Clinton Spilberg movie or the Armie Hammer movie?
No, I love the Armie Hammer movie. The one in the 80s.
Yeah,
what was that guy's name?
Yeah, Clinton Spilberg. Yeah, with Christopher Lloyd as
Christopher Lloyd as
Butch Cavendish.
Yeah,
absolutely, yes.
It was a great movie, but you don't see the Lone Ranger until 30 minutes until the end.
It was ridiculous. Yeah,
and it's like, it's just like I love the Batman Keaton movie. Solve that because he's Batman, and then you tell the origin in flashback if you have to. But if your movie's called Ad Astra, and you know that means to the stars, give us a guy in a helmet in the first scene. Okay, great. And then if he has to do a psych eval, then that's great.
No, I
think that kind of thing is really appropriate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I loved. I mean, we've said already that there are allusions to Apocalypse Now. I loved how it was a much more grounded 2001. And that so many beats are similar to 2001, and without the mystery and the real unknowns that we were dealing with in 1968 when it was made. I mean, Arthur C. Clarke is obviously was such a genius, And there's an interview he did with the Chicago former radio host Studs Terkel, and great writer as well. And it was done in 1962. And they were speculating about, as at the beginnings of the Mercury Project and the space race of, well, when we go to the other planets in the solar system, and if they have atmospheres, will we find life? And there were still a lot of big questions. And what I like about Ad Astra was that it was a much more grounded idea of, again, I mean, from the comparisons of Brad Pitt going to the moon to Dr. Floyd going on his commercial flight to the moon. And, it's much more recognizable now in terms of, 10 minutes from now where Ad Astra takes place compared to now that, it's a pretty mundane flight. And, of course, when you get to the moon, and it's essentially, it looks like any airport, and you see the DHL sign and you see the subway sign there in the terminal and everything, and it's like, it's like a lot of the mysteries of space we know. And it's, again, the subtext of, from 2001 of we don't know what's out there to now of, no, actually we do know what's out there and it's nothing. And it isn't a search for intelligent life. It's, again, what they say, what they say about Tommy Lee Jones at the end of the movie and stuff, that he couldn't see the wonders that were in front of him because he was still so hell-bent in finding life out there. And again, it's like, what if there is no life? As Pitt says, it's just us. There is no magic answer. There isn't going to be any benevolent aliens that have figured out the meaning of life and sustained existence that are going to teach us anything. It's like, no, it's us. And what are we going to do as we push further out there and stuff like that? What are we going to do? Because we're the ones that are going to have to solve this problem. And I love that. I thought that was just fantastic because it puts a big dose of reality in the wonder of space exploration, but also the idea of we may not necessarily find answers out there. We may find solutions, but they're solutions that we're going to have to come to ourselves.
John, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the theme is why I love that movie. Like, so many, bringing it back to the critics who didn't get it, and like, oh, this is slow and boring. I'm like, and the end falls apart. That was my favorite critique. Like, really? The end falls apart? Because that's the point of the movie. When he says, Dad, you didn't fail. You proved that we are all we have.
Yep.
And you have to, your threat to the Earth was an accident, but, your leaving Earth wasn't. And your entire worldview is not right. Like, you're looking for something that you already have on Earth.
Yep.
Right? And I was like, oh, my God. Like, if I was that kind of guy, I would be, like, weeping like my kid found out that there's no Santa Claus. I mean, it's just, that movie is, like, so intense and on the nose, and people are like, nah. I'm like, what world did you grow up with? This movie is just kind of like, It's got the big, I don't know. It's like people didn't appreciate Gravity or The Martian. Yeah. Well, I guess folks like.
I think they like those.
Folks like The Martian, but Gravity kind of got a ding for like not being scientifically accurate because she was hopping from space station to space station, like a polar bear on ice floes. But it's like at some point it's entertainment, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
I don't know. Hey, I was talking to my wife about the film. She asked me, did you like it? Because she knows that I hated Interstellar. Because it's kind of thematically the opposite of this movie. Well, first, they put Anne Hathaway in a spacesuit and then cut her hair. So already I'm not on this. I'm not on the side of this film. But I when I was talking to her, I was like, you know what? All these, like, big thought space movies where it's like, oh, what happens in the expanse of space is not as bad as what happens in your own inner dialogue. I was telling her about it, and I'm like, guess, you know what? All the Ocean's 11 people are in these movies. There's like Sandra Bullock from Ocean's 8.
That's hilarious.
And George Clooney and Brad Pitt and Matt Damon. And I was like, you know what? These guys are the big time movie stars. Even if they don't really get all. I mean, Brad Pitt gets the press and stuff, but I mean, they're like old timey movie stars, like Hepburn and Bogart and stuff.
Yeah.
That those are the guys that can pull off, and even Tom Hanks in Apollo 13. Let's not
absolutely
just do recent ones. These are the guys that can pull off. Well, I'm speaking or representing all of Earth here in the expanse of space, and I'll come through because of my basic humanity. I'm like, oh my God, how do you not love that, Astra? This movie's great.
Yeah, and also, you're right, and I think Pitt's character as well. And people, like you said, are saying, oh, he's boring or whatever, or he's navel-gazing, and it's like, no, man, I get it. And also, I could see whatever they called, it wasn't NASA, It's so funny, I kept hoping that they would have called it Space Force like Trump, just to be hilarious and everything. Because essentially that's what it was. It was Space Force. And, you can see them doing constant psychiatric evaluations because of the time it takes to go to these to the outreaches of the galaxy or the solar system, and the isolation and everything. But also, what I always loved about the book and the documentary Moonshot, Deke Slayton's book that they made into the Turner documentary about the Mercury astronauts in particular, and it went up to Apollo-Soyuz. That an astronaut, because they are left to their own devices a lot of times. I mean, the greatest accomplishments to me of Neil Armstrong were surviving his Gemini mission, where his spaceship was out of control and was able to kind of keep it from spinning and save himself there. But also even on the lunar module simulator, where he had like 3 seconds to know, all right, I got to eject, and they have that actual footage of him using the ejector seat and his parachute however many yards away from the explosion of the simulator. And it's that's the beauty. And just like in that first scene of Ad Astra with Pitt on the space platform and everything. And it's like maintaining composure and like, all right, this is my reality right now. What do I do? Because all I've got is, and again, the recurring theme, all we have is ourselves. All he had was himself. So he's got to stay calm and survive this near-death experience and everything else that he faces throughout the movie.
Well, I agree with you that it's that thing about Neil with the, I forget what it was called, the lunar lander.
Yeah.
It's like a LED, something LED.
Yeah, it was like
I don't know.
it was like the flying bed spring or something like that. But it's essentially a platform with a bunch of little booster rockets on it to simulate the lunar module and the way that it would retrofire its rockets to land.
That whole thing was insane because he bailed out at 1,000 feet. Like his parachute barely inflated. He hit the ground really hard. So his neck ring broke his nose. And that guy went, he was like, oh, okay, well, I didn't die. And he went back to his office and wrote a report about it.
Yep.
Like, I was like, so that you're completely great with your observation about that that's Brad Pitt. That, he's blown off a space elevator and, his heart rate doesn't go over 80 because he's either going to live or he isn't. And either way, there's no reason to get excited.
Yep.
But that's what I love about the theme of that is that they have the psych evaluation thing with Spacecom, and he starts to fail when he starts being more human.
Yep.
So I was like, well, he learned his lesson. That's why I love everything about that film. That the astronaut goes through a story arc where his wife is Liv Tyler, which is great from Armageddon. You get that callback of astronaut's wife. She does that perfect look off into the distance and oh, so why not hire her? But her name is Eve, which I thought was great because this is the speaking to 2001. This is the new thing of technology and man getting together. And her last name was A. They said Eve A. So you get the whole Adam and Eve thing. And there was just that whole movie was full of stuff like that. But I love the astronaut suits and the movie props and stuff. I loved that their zero-G suits had Velcro on the side.
Yep. And
of their shoulders, so the patches were attached with Velcro. So that they could use those suits for somebody other than Spacecom.
Yep.
Like, they just did little stuff like that just, like, the world building was insane. I love the rover fight.
The rover fight was
they're
incredible.
driving.
It was amazing.
They're driving by green and white highway signs. Like, just everything about that was great.
Well, and also the idea, again, and it's funny because I went to see it with a friend, and I just love the notion, again, if you're like us in terms of being space program nerds, that all the various treaties about the moon, it's like, well, of course there's a no man's land on the moon because no government could really claim ownership, full ownership of the moon. So why wouldn't there be areas of the moon that are up for grabs and maybe marauders out there? And I love the idea that, okay, we've got to do all this in secret, so we're gonna launch you from the dark side of the moon. But to get to the dark side of the moon, you're going to have to cross this no man's land where, things are dicey, and it's very much a wagon train being ambushed by robbers or whatever, or a very Western kind of thing. But every moment in the spacesuits and in the moon buggies and the ships and everything, I mean, it was so perfect. I mean, I'm like you, Larry. Yeah, I mean, give me a full 3-hour movie of nothing but guys and women in spacesuits, and that's what we got. And it's like, yeah, man, this is. I mean, the spaceships looked incredible. The shuttles from the big ships looked plausible. Pardon me. It all looked real. It all looked perfect and very believable. And again, you couldn't help but think of 2001. And like I said, instead of these much more loftier, what's out there, all these mysteries and stuff, it's like, no, bad news. There are no mysteries. It's just us, and we're going to have to figure this stuff out. And there is no solution at the end of a mission. It's whatever we're bringing to it and whatever we leave with it. It's like it all ends up being very human problems that we all have to deal with and stuff. I loved them doing the rescue mission and the space apes out of control.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that, exactly, man. And again, growing up with the idea of, the chimpanzees that preceded manned missions and stuff like that, it's like you could see that. You could see them having...
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was fantastic. It was very exciting and believable.
That's the bit like that I think of when people are like, oh, this movie is boring. I'm like, really? Because did you see the scene where there was a little white lab rat floating dead? And then, there's a scene where the research primates are eating some astronaut's face.
Yep.
Like forget the, gunfight with the pirates. I mean, that's action. But there's floating space apes. And, he kind of, the best one, though, you'll have to indulge me.
Sure.
Do you remember the middle part of Astronauts in Trouble, the Space 1959 part? There was I did a 3-chapter thing where I did a prequel to The Life on the Moon about this astronaut called Colonel McAdam. And the first bit was sort of my take on the mystery, and the second was superheroes, and the third thing was trying to do a poetic elegy in comic book form. But the second bit, Colonel McAdam jumps off a cliff through an American flag and grabs onto the ladder and crawls up a launching rocket. And, obviously that can't happen. But I was super happy to see Brad Pitt crawling up the inside of the Cephalus, I think it was, the Cephalus at that point, while it was launching. I was like, oh, man, yes.
Yeah.
He's crawling up the inside of a launching rocket. That movie was full of action and suspense and tension. And you're like, oh, this movie is boring. What, because he was, sad about his wife and his dad for a minute? You guys are nuts.
I'm with you, man. No, I'm with you again, and I bought all of it. I'm interested when as I told you off the air, I reached out to 2 people to talk about this movie, you and then Rob Meyer Burnett, and it was interesting because Rob, and I don't know if he's had it on his YouTube channel yet or not, as far as a review himself, or on John Campia's show where he appears almost daily to talk about movies and stuff. But he told me, he's like, yeah, I was really disappointed in the movie. And that shocked me because I know he likes a lot of the same stuff I do. I can't remember. There's a novel out there that he's recommended before to me about an astronaut's life after coming back from the moon, and how he just can't connect to the world after the wonders that he saw on his space missions and everything. And I can't remember the name of it right now. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's a novel.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, I wish I could.
But Ad Astra is like, it's basically the opposite of that, right?
Yes.
He goes out into the world and goes, oh, okay, I've connected with Earth now. I don't know. I mean, I love Rob. Don't get me wrong.
No,
if
and
he didn't like it,
yeah, I'm cool with somebody who doesn't like it. It's fine.
Not everybody likes anchovies on their pizza, but
sure.
wow, I can't. Did you interview him about it?
No, not yet. I want to, and I'm sure we'll talk because I'm really there's always a million things to talk about. But yeah, man, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, God, I can't wait to hear what you think. And then he messaged me and he's like, yeah, I was really disappointed. And I'm like, well, now I definitely want to talk to you about it because, we can nod and then smile gleefully about how much we love the movie and stuff. But I am interested to talk to someone. Campia did a review of it, and I respect John's point of view. I don't always agree with him. And he said it was boring. He thought it was way too boring and a little too much navel gazing. I'm shrugging, exactly.
Sometimes stuff just hits people different, that's all.
Yeah, and again, being such, space movie fans as we are and stuff, and that's why it was obvious that, oh, God, he is going back to, Kubrick and Clark with 2001 and exploring these same ideas, but doing it in a very grounded and realistic way of bad news, no mystery. No. And guess what? You think, there were nods to the real world in 50 years from now as it was portrayed in 2001 and everything when they made the movie. But that said, I mean, now it's like, it's like I said, like flying to the moon is like flying to Cleveland. And again, I mean, that airport just cracked me up. Because it's like, I can see that.
I was totally hoping for a Howard Johnson sign to give it even more overt nod to 2001. But no, that was great. And I love they kind of addressed it in one of Brad Pitt's voiceovers, where it's like, this is a bummer because, my father would tear this down because this is commerce and it's not adventure.
Right. Absolutely. Well, again, because that's, as it is now, the Washington Post did a great live Q&A with Pitt and the filmmaker, James, and I forget his last name right now.
James Gray.
James Gray, thank you. And then two women from NASA talking about, I didn't even realize that we're that close in terms of going back to the moon, like supposedly by 2024, 5 years away. I didn't realize that. And again, you've got Virgin Airlines and you've got Elon Musk and you've got all these other corporate people that are very happy to, get into the business of space exploration and also just travel and tourism, potential tourism of the moon, that they're going to spend the money to make a lot of this stuff happen. So, it's going to, the likelihood will be that we're going to get some very mundane infrastructure on the moon to, prepare for the eventual flight back to Mars and everything. I'm interested to see what we see in our lifetimes, and then obviously the children, what your son's going to see and the generations under him and everything. But it's very, very interesting, and I like this compared to The Martian. And other modern 10 minutes from now space movies that we've gotten in the last few years. But I think it compares well, and I think there's a lot of subtext. And maybe at the end of the day, the people that were bored, they don't want to think that hard. That's all I can think of, and that they wanted more action, they wanted more adventure. I don't know, but I felt very satisfied both on the subtext and also the literal action we got. the action that we got. Pardon me.
No, you're good. I actually like the line they gave. I forget who said it, but they were talking about that the reason they were an astronaut was because it was probably Captain Tanner, the guy who got his face eaten. Or his scared co-pilot, who said the reason they became astronauts was because of of Tommy Lee Jones's character. And I thought in the film, I'm like, man, this movie's so great. There's somebody in the audience now who's going to grow up to be an astronaut because of this. So it's so funny, like what inspires people.
Sure.
And that folks can go see this movie and think, it's all right, and not be inspired by that. It just blows my mind.
No, I hear you.
Just everything about it. The narrative was like the screenplay was a Swiss watch. It was a Swiss watch
Totally.
that maybe was going a little slow, but it was keeping time. And the special effects were great. Like Brad Pitt, they hung an entire movie on that guy. Like, did you see Ruth Negga had third billing? She has 2 scenes in the film.
So was she the Mars leader that confides in him and says, "No, this is a real deal about your dad and everything"?
Yeah.
No, she was
She's
great.
a great actress. She was in Preacher. And,
Oh, that's right. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes,
She did great. But
No,
I just think it's funny. I mean, like the third billing actress has 8 minutes of screen time. That entire movie is hung on Brad Pitt. I just told my wife, she's not as big a action fan as I am, and she thinks my space love is very cute. But I'm like, I really think you're gonna like this movie. And she's like, oh, why? And I'm like, well, it has some pretty deep themes that have bearing on your life. I mean, she's very compartmentalized. She's not an astronaut, but she's no nonsense about getting her stuff done. And I said, you're really going to like it. And it's full of Brad Pitt's dreamy blue eyes. So,
That's true. That's true.
That's why I'm like, I don't get why people think this is boring. Because even me, I'm like, that's a handsome man.
Well, I can see
He's
people
in a
that
spacesuit.
I can see people that are Liv Tyler fans and were maybe disappointed with how little she had to do in the movie, and I mean, and especially for the star billing that she got as well. But that said, I mean, what are you going to do? It really is all about Brad Pitt's character and searching for his father. So it really is Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, I thought Donald Sutherland did a great job. I thought everybody in the film acted appropriately, and it was, I thought it was, like you said, I think it's a Swiss watch as well. I thought it was well executed.
I think if you're a Liv Tyler fan, you have to love that movie, because he goes from not, just going through the motions with her and her relationship, and coming back to earth and going, I know what you were doing for me now, and I'd like to keep doing that.
Yeah.
She's honestly, she's the emotional core of that movie. If
I
you
agree.
ask me.
Yes.
So I don't know.
He realizes what he left
I'm a
behind.
giant Liv Tyler fan. I love her. She's great.
Yeah, I think you're right. Go ahead.
Nobody does that Left Behind thing and sell the emotional thing to the audience better than her. I'll say that. She's great.
I agree, and you're right about bookending this to Armageddon. I think you're right about that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure James Gray had that in mind. It's like,
yeah, probably.
Hey, get the Left Behind girl, because she does that in a lot of her films. Her role is kind of like that in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
That's hilarious. Well, even the Kevin Smith movie with Affleck.
Yeah, there you go.
The Jersey Girl and everything. I mean, yeah. I think you're right. No, that's a very good point. I really I think this movie hits all the right notes, and again, it's interesting as we prepare for our return to the moon in a couple years. I think this movie really is a timely film, and yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, it's funny. Phil Hester was saying today on Twitter that he's seeing the negative things, and he's like, I don't get it. And I said, hey man, all I can tell you is I loved it, and I'll be in again as we go on, and I realize that we're only entering the second weekend. It's interesting, the movie habits now. I used to be a person that was not about doing a spoiler review so soon after a film is released, because as an adult man, it's like, well, maybe I don't have time to see it right away first weekend. And it's so I'll be interested. I mean, I know Downton Abbey beat the pants off of Ad Astra at the box office chase last weekend, and that's fine, and I get that. That's cool, and I'll see Downton Abbey.
Well, that's one of those things that Downton Abbey's that's that's why they keep making prequels and sequels, because
Sure.
that had a waiting audience for it. So yeah, I'm not surprised. But yeah, boy, these movies where somebody's trying to say something that's poignant and meaningful. Yeah, you're not gonna. I mean, even I'm like Mr. Spaceman, and even I just saw it first yesterday. It's just that's why it's fresh in my mind. But like you said, adult man, you got stuff going on. And ordinarily, if I hit a movie opening day or opening weekend, it's because my kid wants to see it.
I hear you. No, it makes sense.
But I'm like, I gotta see Ad Astra. I got it, and it was a really good experience for me personally, because I got an open schedule, so I got to go 10 o'clock in the morning. It's like 4 other people in that, and I paid the extra for the reclining seats and the
Attaboy.
the foot massage and the martinis and beer and stuff.
Sure.
But boy, what a great movie to see.
I didn't see it in IMAX. I saw it in a nice theater, and also, thankfully, I saw it in a audience that it was Sunday afternoon, and it was pretty full, but they were well behaved, and it wasn't a lot of checking your phone and breaking into conversation and stuff. So that's nice, and I see that a lot in a lot of the Marvel movies, frankly, and in Star Wars movies as well.
It's the kids.
Yeah.
The thing I loved about the special effects, the stuff on the moon, the Moonbase Alpha and the Pirate Run, I love the helmets were old Russian helmets from like the 50s. That was great. Like the pirates could only scavenge that sort of technology.
Wow, I didn't catch that detail. That's fantastic.
Yeah, you know me, I'm crazy. I even got a guess as to what they are. I think they're YKKs. Because I use them. I use them sometimes in my various things. I'm building my kid loves Benny from the Lego movie.
Okay,
so
sure. Spaceship.
For Halloween, I'm building a Benny suit, like if he was a real guy.
Hilarious.
So I got a blue race car driver suit, and I made a little backpack, and I got one of those helmets, the old Russian helmets. So that's why it's a very familiar shape to me. I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
How many different uniforms and pieces do you have?
Of the spacesuits?
Yeah, just spacesuits
I think I have
general.
6.
Wow.
I think I have 6.
Wow.
I have a screen used suit from Armageddon, Captain Tucker, the guy who gets destroyed. I have his suit with a replica helmet, because you know what they did? the Armageddon guys destroyed all the helmets so they wouldn't be sold in the aftermarket.
Crazy.
Except for Bruce Willis's and Michael Clark Duncan's.
Wow.
So so there's like a small little crazy black market thing of these guys that make replica Armageddon helmets in case you can get the parts and not the helmet.
Jesus.
But I have a Space 1999 suit.
Wow.
From Ed Marecki, who it's not screen used, but it's made from period parts, so that's cool.
That's amazing.
So I think I have a suit from Defying Gravity. I don't know if you saw that ABC Canada joint show that they burned one summer.
Oh, yeah.
That show was smoking good.
It's on Netflix, I want to say.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure
really
it is.
recommend
I haven't
that.
watched it. Oh, I haven't watched it. That's really interesting. Okay.
No, I really recommend that show because they did a cool little Lost kind of ripoff thing, and they avoided the 20-minute barbecue. They have the ship is going out and everything, but then they do flashbacks about when everybody's training and why this guy hates that guy and everything. Oh man, I love that show, and I loved it so much that when it got canceled, I Googled everything I could about it, and the main showrunner and writer had he released all his notes about where it would have gone for the next 3 years, and I was like, okay, if you can't make the show, I'm glad you did that. Because at least I know what happened to all these guys.
I hear you, man.
Anyway.
That's like Nowhere Man, the UPN show Nowhere Man. I was really bummed when it got canceled. And, I was really like, oh, God, where are they going to go with this? I, in fact, got to meet Bruce Greenwood after he had done the first JJ Star Trek movie. And he had already done 13 Days. And I told him, I said, hey, man, you were a great JFK, and I loved you as Christopher Pike. I said, but Nowhere Man. And he goes, oh, thanks, man. He goes, I love that show. And I said, yeah, it was terrific. So, yeah, it was really great to tell him, like, how much I love Nowhere Man. So,
isn't that great when you can, I mean, that we've lived our lives that actors are like that. I get to talk to Bill Pullman and go, I'm the one guy who loved Zero Effect. And I talked
Zero
to him
Effect. That was a great movie. Absolutely.
I talked to him for like 5 minutes. He was like, nobody mentions that movie to me. I'm like, dude, if I was like, I used to publish comics and I never did licensed stuff, but I always wanted Jake Kasdan to like pitch me a Zero Effect ongoing series because that's just the whole concept is so awesome.
Oh, it was hilarious. Absolutely, man. Ryan O'Neal, everybody in that movie is fantastic. Pullman was great in that. And I had the similar situation with Avery Brooks and meeting him.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm just like, let me tell you, man, I love Cisco and every film you do is great. I said, but you are the quintessential Hawk in the Spencer series.
Exactly.
And he broke it, and then I said, and I loved a man called Hawk. And he's like, well, I was pretty proud of that too. And I'm like, I go, every time they've tried to do other Spencer things without Urich, and they've tried to, and even within that, he wasn't always Hawk. I'm like, every actor they've tried to get with Hawk, I go, no one can hold a candle to you. I'm like, you are Robert Parker's character come to life. And perfect.
I never say this, but I totally wish that I was standing next to you when you had that conversation.
It was the best because
great.
I tried to buy him a drink. I've told this story before on Word Balloon, and he's like, no, that's not necessary. I'm like, really, it'd be my pleasure. And he became Captain Cisco, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he's like, John, you don't have to buy me a drink. We're having a lovely conversation. It's okay. Oh. And immediately I became like 12 years old, and I'm like, okay, listen, I'm not going to bother you anymore. I'll let you be, but thank you very much. And it was just amazing. I'm like, all right, man.
Oh,
he was the best. I love that guy. Did you see What We Left Behind, the Deep Space Nine documentary?
No, not yet. But speaking of Rob Burnett, he's always talking about that. I'm like, I got to make time for that.
It's amazing. It's excellent. And it's funny because I know people are kind of half and half on that, too, that they don't appreciate the jokiness of it. And they wish that it would have gone in more detail about, the positive things that Deep Space Nine did for the Star Trek franchise and the issues that they discussed. I thought they got enough of that. And, of course, as we're recording, Aaron Eisenberg, unfortunately, passed away, the kid who played Nog. And, man, that guy, what a great actor. And, man, he was up to the task of what they wrote for him because he really went from being an annoying little kid character to a much more nuanced character. And, from losing a leg in the series, his character loses a leg from the Cardassian War, and it's just really tough. And God, that one episode of all people, him and James Darren, playing the Rat Pack kind of hologram character, and Nog bears his soul to that guy, and it's like, look, there's nothing for me in the real world. I don't know who I am in the real world anymore. And it's like, wow. I mean, there was some tough stuff in there. It's Only a Paper Moon is that episode. And he was great. He was great. And Deep Space Nine was one of my favorite shows. And I don't know how it was for you in San Francisco trying to watch it, but in Chicago, it would get preempted on the weekends by Cub games all the time. And they would, it would be on like Saturday afternoons at 5 was its normal time. And half the time it'd be like, catch the next episode on a special day, Friday night at 1 a.m. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. You're killing me, man. I mean,
we lucked out. We lucked out. We could watch it. You give me a giant smile because I used to videotape all the episodes. I'd put 4 on a tape, and good times.
Oh yeah,
old days.
And cut out all the commercials. Oh God, if I could watch it live, absolutely. And no, I hung on to those VHSs for the longest time of just constant Deep Space Nine. Well, before we could stream and binge the way we can now. So
right,
I don't think we've talked about Picard because I don't think the trailer had come out. Last time we talked, it was I think it was still after Discovery had wrapped up, and well before they released that first trailer and stuff. I'll be honest, man. As much as I hate on Discovery, I'm excited for Picard, and I'm still a little nervous just because of the producers and their blatant lack of understanding of the basics of Star Trek. But that said, the fact that Michael Chabon is involved, and I know Michael Chabon is a hardcore fan, and I don't think Patrick Stewart would come back for a shitty idea.
Well, that's where I'm at. I mean, like, you can't control the suits and the bean counters.
Yeah.
But Sir Pat, man, that guy's a great actor, and like you said, it's hard to believe that he would come back just for a paycheck. Because, I don't know. Actors got to work, but it seems to me like all the press I've read about it seems like he's very into what they're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I'll give him a shot on that one.
Well, sure.
Here's the thing. I mean, we spoke about that last time. I love Star Trek. Not a Star Trek hater. I hate some aspects of the stuff that they're doing because it's not Star Trek. So Picard kind of looks like everybody's given the whole like vineyard shots from the first trailer a hard time, and it's old man Alzheimer's and his grapes, and I'm like, did you guys see Brothers, the show that introduced his brother, or Family? It was called Family.
Right, yeah, Family.
Introduced his brother right after Best of Both Worlds. The vineyard thing isn't coming out of nowhere. I trust that Patrick Stewart is going to be giving us some good work.
Yeah, I agree.
So, at the worst, we get to watch a good actor at the top of his game, right?
Yeah, no.
How bad is that?
No, I agree with you, and I think the ideas that they've laid out that we see in the trailer are intriguing, and whatever the Romulans are doing with the Borg, I think is an interesting idea. We'll see where that all goes. I like Alison Pill as an actor. I think she's great. I wasn't crazy about her character in the Newsroom, but again, that's more writing than it is her acting and stuff. And I think she's a solid young actor, and I'm glad she's part of it as well. I'm thrilled that Hugh is involved, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see what's happened to Hugh in 25 years. Jerry Ryan is always good, and I think I'm intrigued with her role. I like whatever little snippet of data we got and whatever it represents. If it's a manifestation of Picard's psyche talking to him, that's my belief of what we're seeing in the trailer. That's
a good observation.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be, especially given that he's disassembled, or if it's not him, it's B4 disassembled in that opening scene. So yeah, I'm willing to take the ride with them on that. And two of my favorite people in comics, the Benson sisters, are writing the Nickelodeon Star Trek animated series for kids.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful on that, and they're obviously under NDAs and tight-lipped, and that's fine. I didn't expect there to be anything else, but But that's okay. And Lower Decks looks funny. I'm a big Rick and Morty fan, and I think this guy obviously is a Star Trek fan. I mean, that goes back to what I said before about Feige being involved with Star Wars. I think the stigma that used to be there in terms of don't let the suits know that you're a nerd about Star Trek because they're not going to let you play with the toys if they think you're too close to it. I know Ron Moore had said that in the past when he joined the writing staff of Next Generation. I think that's an old problem, and I think they're recognizing that, no, we need fans in the writer's room. Now, the one thing, of course, that happened last month that absolutely was insulting, and they deserve all the egg on their face for it, is the Walter Mosley Discovery thing. And
oh my God! Yeah.
Oh my God, it's right. I mean, it really angered me, and also I love watching, and I mean this. I love watching the videos people make of the panels at Star Trek Celebration in Vegas. And there's one panel, I don't know if you saw it, where it was all the living actors who played the doctors on all the various shows. And Wilson Cruz, the doctor from Discovery, was there as well. And they kind of went to, and Gates McFadden was there, and Siddig Al-Fadil, Alexander Siddig, he was there as Bashir, and John Billingsley was there for Phlox. Robert Picardo was there as the EMH. And they all kind of went down the line, and it's like, what do you think your show best represents? And they got to Wilson Cruz, and he gave that stock answer. well, diversity. And it's like, yeah, really? And it's like, yeah, you're, and well, first of all, it was great because John Billingsley, Cruz is like, well, we've got gay characters on our show. And John Billingsley's like, Phlox on Enterprise was bisexual. And we made a point of saying it on the show. We just didn't say it every week. And everybody started to applaud. The audience, really, it was great to see the audience just kind of applaud. And it's like, yeah, guess what? You don't have to wear it on your sleeve. And also, again, the hypocrisy. Unfortunately, I'm sure Wilson Cruz believes, and I'm saying this honestly, I'm sure he wouldn't have treated Walter Mosley that way. I'd like to believe that. But yeah, it's just like, you're all full of shit. And the more you don't talk about diversity, I hope people bring up the Walter Mosley incident, because you're all full of shit. And you all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Because you should be a little more charitable to an older generation that is gay. I mean, hey man, more societal mores change, and we know that as we get older. Things that, like we just were saying earlier, things that flew in the 70s wouldn't necessarily fly today, and that's okay. It's all right for groups to say, yeah, something, we're not going to take that anymore. Okay, I get that, but by the same token, be a little charitable for an older generation that's trying to make a point that supports what you're saying, and don't fly off the handle because of a word. And that's really petty and disappointing and wrong. And again, it just shows how full of shit you are, frankly.
Well, that's the bit that bugged me, is that, it's not you or me saying that. Right? I mean, this guy's a respected writer. I mean, you've called him in to give your diversity claim, legitimacy.
Yep.
And this guy's going to rock it, and you're like, he starts telling a story. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, right? I just read this stuff. It just seemed wrong. Especially given the history of the writers' room, where they're like, well, we've never had an African American lead, like Avery Brooks,
right? Well, that's what I mean.
We've never had a woman, and it's like, what? Do you guys watch Star Trek?
Right. Well, yeah, and even and it's funny because
given all that, that was just odd.
Rob Burnett brought up that great line from the third season of the original series, Savage Curtain, where the aliens construct Abraham Lincoln, and he really this construct thing said he is Abraham Lincoln, and he meets Uhura. And he refers to her as a charming negress. And, of course, everybody blanches. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend. And she said, no, sir, you see, in our era, words don't affect us, or words don't hurt us. And it's
right. We've learned not to fear words.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if anyone was offended by my use of...
I think every writer loves that scene.
Yeah, and again, it's, I apologize if anyone, blanches at that word. I think it is different from the taboo word that was used. But again, even though it's a writer's room where you're supposed to be able to, anything goes.
That's the thing, man. I mean, you're using it in context. That's why I don't understand why people got upset. Because in the context of the writer's room, like, what? He's not how can you possibly be offended about a guy speaking his own truth?
Yeah.
He's telling a story about what happened to him.
Yeah.
Like, what? Come on.
No,
Come on.
Yeah.
Especially writers. I mean, if it was a bunch of, fill in the blank, blue-collar workers,
right. Kids,
whatever.
Kids, I don't know. Yeah, inexperienced
exactly,
kids.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But a bunch of professional writers, you're upset with that? And it's Walter Mosley.
You know what's crazy too, man? I had, and it had nothing to do with racial slurs or epithets or anything. I had a run-in with Human Resources when my radio station was still owned by CBS. And unlike...
You're like the coolest guy ever.
Well...
Tell me you like...
Live radio. It was live... being in live radio, sometimes... Yeah. You're a little aggressive in terms of, hey, I need this now, and the person is like, John was being mean. So I was written up, and I had to speak to Human Resources. Unlike Mosley's situation, my manager immediately is like, tell me what happened. I want to hear both sides, and because I want to give you as much of a fair shake as a person that is complaining about you. And it was great, and I was treated fairly. I understood why, I'm like, no, I get it. I go, this was my thoughts, why I did what I did. I certainly didn't mean to hurt this person. And it was fine. And it was a slap on the wrist and just like, okay, well, I mean, some people are sensitive. Try to keep that in mind. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I just, went about my business. But I felt like
that's what you want, right? Like everybody acting like adults,
right? And then again,
obviously it didn't happen there.
No, where was Kurtzman? I mean, exactly the guy who brought Mosley in. What kind of manager is he that he's not even like, hey, wait a minute, to the person that's making the accusation? Okay, but you got to understand the context in which it was said, and this guy's valuable, and we want him here. And I give Mosley all the credit in the world, saying, I don't need this bullshit.
I love that. He just stopped going to work.
Yeah.
And it took Kurtzman in Paradise 2 days to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's happening over there?
Exactly. And again, they don't understand the basics of Star Trek. And especially Paradise, it bothers me because I know, isn't Paradise the one that's been writing those Voyager novels and everything? I thought she was.
I'm not sure about her resume, honestly.
Okay, because I know they have someone in the writer's room that had been writing. Well, also I know Dayton Ward, a very good Star Trek novelist, is in the at least John Van Sitter's realm as a consultant, and Van Sitters is the brand manager right now of all things Star Trek at CBS. But I thought Paradise had written a few of those Voyager novels. Or no, maybe it's... I want to say maybe the author's name is Alison Beyer or something like that. Maybe it's somebody different.
Yeah, but, I don't know. The only guy I know in the writer's room is Alan McElroy, and that guy I will vouch for. He's 100% Star Trek fan like us.
I know him.
And yeah, I don't want to... he's a really good writer.
Okay.
He's written... he wrote for True Blood. He's a buddy of mine, so I'm not really 100% up on his work because I just follow him.
Sure.
But we've spoken at length about Star Trek, and I just wish they'd let that guy off the leash because there'd be a Pike and a number one show right now, and everybody would be happy.
Well, we'll see what happens with that short Trek because that is the one thing about season 2. I think. Rebecca Romaine was only given so much to do as number one, but she was great. But Anson Mount was fantastic as Pike, and such a contrast to the rest of the entire Discovery crew, the way they were written, that it was so weird. But we'll see. I mean, we are supposedly getting at least one short Trek with them. We'll see, and we'll see what this third season looks like of Discovery. I'm hearing that there may only be 8 episodes, which I find interesting, and suggests to me that they just kind of want to wrap this thing up and be done with it. Yeah, I don't know. It's I guess we'll learn more next year.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't tell anybody, but I'm really looking forward to it because I don't know how you explain a Star Trek show 1,000 years in the future. From based on 10 years before Kirk and Spock. It's just such a crazy mess of ingredients. I want to see what they pull out.
Oh, I don't know. I liked in Enterprise when they did Aftershock, and Archer was kind of stuck in the alternate future that was all in ruin and everything. And he and Crewman Daniels were trying to figure out a way to bring him back without having access to the technology of the moment and everything. I thought all that was intriguing.
I just don't know how it's Star Trek, right?
Well, although it's still where no man has gone before, and it is exploring strange new worlds.
Then thank God they got that in their head after 3 years, right? I mean,
well, yeah, something that didn't occur to them for the first 2 seasons. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I didn't even like that one standalone episode from second season where the Earth colony has the mishmash of religions and everything, and they're worried about affecting the Prime Directive with them. That didn't make sense. It didn't make sense how that thing even existed. Michael Burnham's mother took them and moved this colony there. I didn't understand any of that. But again, that's one of a million things I didn't understand.
I never know if it's because I'm getting old or if stuff just doesn't make any sense. But I can tell you all kinds of stuff and make up all kinds of ways things work and explanations for stuff. And then I get to Discovery and I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
None of this really makes any sense.
No, I hear you, man. I totally agree. Absolutely. Well, the good news is I'm glad that the powers that be allowed for a movie like Ad Astra to exist. And it's, we
cool.
need, it's another reminder to the Star Trek people that say, oh, we need to dumb it down for people. No, you don't. You can do smart science fiction, and all you have to do is look at Ad Astra as a perfect example of that. So, and again, we'll see what happens with Picard. What's happening with your S.H.I.E.L.D. book, man?
Oh, I'm working on it. Slow and sure.
Right. I'm not your teacher.
Season 7 is coming out. Season 7 is coming out in May, and I've been doing word counts on all the things. So I think it's going to be a 2-volume book. So I may have the first book done right after Christmas, and then the second book ready for San Diego.
Interesting. I didn't realize they were doing another season.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, this last I have a love-hate relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D.
Sure.
And because it's really good, but it's not what I want, and so I have to make the calculation. Well, just because it's not what I want doesn't mean it's not awesome.
Okay. All right.
You know what I mean? So there's a little remove there, but this one, they're bringing Coulson's dead 3 or 4 times, and they've now made him a life model decoy and stranded him in the 1930s. The last shot of this season was their ship, their S.H.I.E.L.D. cloaked jet called the Zephyr, flies in over New York City, and they say a bunch of stuff about how there's not a lot of large buildings, and they don't expect it's data they don't expect, and then the clouds reveal that they're just building the top of the Empire State Building. So they're in 1937 or so, whatever.
I wonder.
So I'm really looking forward to what's happening there.
Yeah, I wonder how many Golden Age Marvel characters they try to populate the area, if any.
Well, if it was, honestly, I think that's what they're doing, right? They have said that Haley Atwell is reprising her role as Agent Carter. So I really hope they sort of cascade up to the present, hitting all the major things and having this life model decoy of Coulson be like always in the Marvel universe, because the real Coulson's dead now again.
Sure.
And so to have like that would reveal that the Coulson in Captain Marvel is a dead guy, and the guy that Loki killed was a life model decoy, and it's just there's lots of ways the story could go. I'm really excited about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I'm due to I need to touch base with Jeff Loeb and set up a new talk. I reached out to him about a month ago or so. So I'll have to.
I bet that guy's busy.
Yeah, well, exactly, man. And I'm interested to see what his role is moving forward with the Disney Plus shows and everything too, because there was kind of obviously this division because of the hard feelings between Feige and Ike Perlmutter for the longest time. That kind of put the kibosh on the Marvel movie panel as far as Buckley, Quesada, and key writers being involved in movie calls and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know how that impacts TV now that the Feige team is also taking such an active role on TV as well as the movies. I don't know. It'd
be great to keep track of, though. I hope they keep him because he's doing a great job.
I love Jeff. I agree. I love Jeff. I think for the most part the Netflix shows were a success and interesting. And God, honestly, I'm amazed that S.H.I.E.L.D. is making it to season 7. I mean, that's a testament.
I think people are. They wrapped already, so it's over as far as
shooting
that goes. And every day I wake up and I'm like, have they announced where the props are going? Because I got to have one of Phil Coulson's ties. His tie from his suits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Movie props. I'm crazy.
Well, dude, great conversation, man. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, thanks, John.
It's my pleasure. Honestly, like I said, I knew who to call about Ad Astra, and I figured that you would have the same reaction to it that I did, us being astronaut nerds. You know what I bought about 2 months before the movie came out? I bought that commemorative Hot Wheels thing they put out in the 90s when John Glenn went back on the shuttle, on the space shuttle. And they have
no kidding.
And they have a Mercury capsule, a space shuttle, a Mercury era astronaut, and a space shuttle era astronaut, and then a shot of him in his senator suit out, and everything. So three little
awesome.
figures and these two vehicles and stuff. And primarily, I bought it for the Mercury's capsule and the Mercury astronaut and stuff because I don't know.
That's great.
I mean, I love the space program. But, as I always say, man, like the shuttle, it's like, at that point, I don't know. There was much more romance and allure for me with the original Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs than the subsequent space shuttle and space station programs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, too funny. But Ad Astra kind of tied it all together for me, so it was cool.
John, someday we're going to be shaking hands on seeing the moon from the inside of a spacesuit and laughing about
There
it.
you go, man. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be standing on Mars. Exactly.
Yeah.
And go, it's a lot redder than I thought it was going to be. I got to be honest. So, too funny, Larry. We'll stay in touch, man. And
All right.
as always, a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, pleasure to talk to you, too. You know I enjoy it.
There we go, man.
Thanks, John.
All right, Larry Young. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you had similar reactions to Ad Astra, and at the very least enjoyed the movie. You maybe didn't have to love it the way Larry and I did, but blew me away. What can I say? I'm looking at my Hot Wheels John Glenn action pack right now, and his Mercury capsule and his Mercury spaceman look, the space shuttle and the space shuttle astronaut look, and even a full senator blue blazer, very Clark Kent looking, except of course John Glenn was bald. I got to meet John Glenn. It was he's the one original astronaut that I got to meet, and we met him at the Capitol back in 1996, a couple of years before he decided to go back in space. He was still a senator. Wow, 23 years ago now that 23 years ago now that I think of it. Unbelievable. And couldn't have been nicer. He's like, "Are you from Ohio?" And I'm like, he was from Ohio. I'm like, "No, I'm from Illinois." He's like, "It's all right. I'll shake your hand anyway." And he left. And my God, I mean, it was meeting a hero. This guy was, all those Mercury 7 guys, I have nothing but high esteem for, and that includes the Gemini 9 and the new group after the Gemini 9 that was so important to the Apollo missions. All those guys, top to bottom. Jim Lovell was an Illinois guy, Chicago guy. Never had the opportunity to meet him. He's still around. Gene Cernan's still around, very active in Chicago college community life. Was very active with the college, Triton College in particular in Chicago. And, all I can say is these guys were my heroes. As we said, I mean, God, Neil Armstrong's unbelievable reflexes in those missions prior to Apollo 11 showed his mettle and showed what kind of tough guy he is and a brilliant guy. As back in the day when I talked to Jeff Johns about Green Lantern, it's like, Hal Jordan's a test pilot. Why would you make him anything else? He was a near astronaut. Almost like Chuck Yeager was, if you know your movie The Right Stuff with the Philip Kaufman movie that I adore. These guys were, as the title suggested, I mean, and Tom Wolfe's book as well that the movie was based on. I mean, these were the real heroes of their time, and they were risking their lives for the betterment of space and exploration. And God, in these troubled times, we need these kinds of heroes. And that's why I adored Ad Astra as much as I did. And again, it kind of looked at, just the realities of what might be happening as far as space missions, the public persona that the Space Forces and NASA's will try and project on these guys and women. Very interesting times. And again, hard to believe, man, we're going back to the moon in 5 years. I'm all for it. I hope all that gets the funding necessary, and that those missions really do happen. Because I think it's important. I think it's a great morale thing, not just for the United States, but really the whole world. We need to go back to the moon. So it'll be fun. And Ad Astra, I think, is a nice little palate cleanser to get us ready for the new frontiers we face ahead. I hope you enjoyed today's Word Balloon. It was brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners through their subscriptions at Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. We're at the end of the month. I thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. And Word Balloon is brought to you by Aftershock Comics, one of the great independent publishers that are out there doing their thing with some great recognizable names. You know, hell, Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Riso have their book through Aftershock. Marguerite Bennett's Animosity, Jimmy's Bastards from Garth Ennis, Baby Teeth from Donny Cates, Phil Hester's Stronghold, Tim Seeley's Dark Red, Cullen Bunn's so many great books, Brothers Dracul and Dark Ark, and of course Night Temporal, and Matthew Klickstein's You're Obsolete, Stephanie Phillips, a fine Aftershock creator. Going to talk to Stephanie again. She reached out to me. She's got a new project. Can't wait to help her out and talk about it here at Word Balloon. But they've got tremendous books, genre-bending books, that I'm sure you'll find the right book for you with that Aftershock imprint above the title. You can check things out yourself. You don't have to wait for my next interview with an Aftershock creator. But until then, go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, art preview pages, and the diamond codes on their books and how to order them through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening. Thank you for your patience this month, everybody. You can hear the cough in my voice. And I am recovering, and I will be talking to more Word Balloon guests and have new content for you. One more show before the end of the month, and then it's Rocktober, and everyone's going to be at New York Comic Con. I'm not going to be there, I'm sorry to say. I decided after Rose City and Terrificon in Connecticut that, that was enough. I'm so close to healing with this stupid leg infection, and I'd rather just kind of take it easy and fully heal before doing all the walking that we normally do in New York. I love New York. It's really one of my absolute favorite cities all over the world. And I always have fun there. That convention drives me nuts. Far too many people in far too small of a space. I'm envisioning it right now in my head, but it's surrounded by the greatest city in the country as far as I'm concerned. I adore New York, and I say that as a lifetime Chicago person. But it's got that energy, man. It's got that downtown energy that you want from a big city. And I go crazy. Plus, my good friends that I stay with out there, I love them, and it's great to catch up with them. So, no New York for me. That's all right. I can take a break. And it's funny. I remember last time I took a break, it was another medical reason. It was right after I had my hernia. And my hernia operation, I had to take it easy. But I'll be back. I'll be back next year. And fully healed and back full force on the convention scene. Did pretty good this year, actually. I still managed to get to 2 cons. Even had to miss my local cons. Even going to miss Ace Comic-Con, the con that the Wizard guys, the Sheamus brothers, are still running. I won't be there either in my own backyard, just to kind of take it easy. But I hope everybody has a great time at these shows. And, we'll catch up. And I thank all the great Word Balloon listeners that I was able to see in Portland and in Connecticut for Terrificon. It was great. It's great to meet everybody, and thank you personally for listening to Word Balloon. So more great stuff before we wrap things up in a couple days in September and move on to October. Until then, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.